All right, welcome back to the show today. For the second week in a row, I have caught a big fish. It's been a fish I've been chasing for 3 years, 300 episodes. But if you know, last week I caught Bobby Hall. This week I caught mentor number two, and that's Marcus Boyles. Marcus is one of the most accomplished and respected high school football coaches in the country. He was a 2025 finalist for the National High School Athletic Coaches Association Coach of the Year Award. With well over 300 career wins, five state championships across three different classifications, and nine state championship appearances, Boyles has built a legacy defined by sustained excellence, discipline, and impact. He was inducted into the Mississippi Association of Coaches Hall of Fame in 2023 and is widely regarded as one of the winningest and most influential coaches in Mississippi high school football history. Coach Boyles began his head coaching career at Taylorsville High School, where he posted an incredible 67-4 record with two state championships. Then he went on to lead successful programs at Pearl, which is where I met him, Wayne County, where I went with him for a year, and Petal High School, where he compiled an 80-39 record during his first stint, led the Panthers to a state championship appearance. Known for his ability to build tough, disciplined, and character driven teams, Marcus returned to Petal High School in 2024 to continue investing in student athletes and the community he deeply values. Beyond the wins and championships, Coach Boyles is a husband, a father, a mentor, and a leader whose influence has shaped generations of players and coaches both on and off the field. Coach, you didn't just impact players, you impacted coaches, as you well know. I'm sitting here today because some of the things you poured into me 25 plus years ago in Pearl and Wayne County, have helped me be who I am today. So I want people to hear not just what you've done, but how you've done it. And I'm so grateful for the role that you have played in my life. And I'm grateful that you finally allowed me to get you on this podcast. So it's a double win for me.
Yeah, when you're old like me, you don't get on podcasts very much. You listen to them, but you don't do them yourself. So, hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate what Coach didn't fail to tell you is when I was at Petal and he had that historic run at Pearl, he beat me, I think, twice during that year. I believe during the regular season, then beat me in the playoffs on his way to a state championship.
Well, it would have been pure luck, I'm sure of that. But what you have done is, amazing in the high school realm. I mean, I don't know, where you rank in wins, but I'm sure, you're in the top five, probably in the history of that state, which is phenomenal. Let's start with this. Take me back to, what shaped you early. What shaped you growing up. That led to you having the standard that you have for your success. Like, what was early life like?
I think my mom and dad divorced in when I was in first grade, and just both those, my mom and dad were both educators, so just kind of grew up in school. My dad was a coach, so I think that played a factor. Growing up in a small town like Raleigh, Mississippi, which I know most people don't know, I mean, you just kind of played everything. That's just
Mm.
back then, and we drove during baseball, playing little league baseball. You drove. I mean, you rode to the park, or you rode a bike to the park, or you walked to the park. That's just how you did it. And man, whatever season it was, that's what we did. We played ball, and I think that shaped me for just wanting to be a coach, wanting to be around that. And then obviously the guy you talked about, Bobby Hall, who is obviously a mentor to both of us. Playing for him for 4 years and in high school football, just the discipline, the hard work, the great effort that you had to give every day. Because back then, when I played in the '80s, it was it was just full speed physical practices every single day. A little different than it is today.
Sure. One of the things when I interviewed Coach Hall, when asked about what he believed separated him from other people, one of the first things that come up was hard work. Like having a plan every single day of your life to go out and get a little bit better and not just flip the football out at practice and things like that. Kind of stood out, which I knew that from having worked with him and been around him. When was the first time you can you remember the first time when you said, "Man, I'm gonna be a football coach. Like that's what I want to be." And then I would also say this because I think, you coming to Pearl in 98, maybe it was,
Yeah,
like that for me it was a stroke of luck. You can call it luck or you can call it God's intervention in my life because, like it truly transformed me. It was the start of
hmm,
me becoming a better human who it took a little while for me to figure life out. But, what role did that play in you? Because, I mean, gosh, as a high school kid, like you have Coach Hall come in. I'm sure Coach Hall, continued to get better, blah, blah, blah. And he did say he worked in the younger years, he worked his kids too freaking hard and it probably cost him some games. So you were probably a part of that. But,
right.
two-part question. When did you decide coaching was your thing? And then what role do you think Coach Hall played in that early on, being your high school coach?
Yeah, I think probably always wanted to be a coach. My mom and dad always steered me because of, I mean, honestly, just the financial struggles that,
Sure.
that teachers and coaches, at that time were going through. And so they steered me a different way. And, but when so played at Jones Junior College, Jones Community College, played there for 2 years. And then went to Ole Miss for a semester in pharmacy school and completely hated it. I mean,
Mm,
just, it wasn't for me and left school at Christmas of that year. Went to work at a plant called Georgia Pacific, where I worked nights, 11 to 7,
mm,
and just that helped me really. That semester helped me realize this is what I want to do. I want to
mm.
coach. This is what I want to do, and that's so. It would be after my sophomore year at Jones. I kind of figured out, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to coach. I love it. And this is just this is who I'm going to be. And then obviously, man, just from the time I realized I wanted to be a coach, I knew I wanted to work with Bobby Hall. He was my high school coach. I loved him to death, still love him this day, respect the heck out of him, and just knew that that's who I wanted to learn from. Because to me, and still to this day, he is the best football coach I've ever been around. He is just the best I've ever been around. And I just never forget. Myra and I were talking about this. My wife was talking about this just the other day when I was at Louisville, this is bad, so I'm gonna say it anyway. When I was at Louisville, we had Victoria, my first daughter, July the 23rd. That fall, I'm showing up at Coach Hall's office every morning during the fall at 6 o'clock to learn
Mm.
to talk with him, see how he's breaking down film. Even though we met on Sunday, I still wanted to be with him as he's putting in the game plan because I'm a third year coach. I don't know anything about a game plan. So I'm listening to him, how he puts in the game plan. And Myra says, yeah, you left me at 6 o'clock with a 2 month. So I don't
Right.
suggest that to other coaches, but that's just what I did. And that was very big. And then just working with someone that has such great discipline on the team that is Coach Hall's teams never got outworked. They might, you may play a team that was better than you for whatever reason, but you would not go outwork a Coach Hall team. And I've just tried to do the same thing in my coaching career.
And I said this last week, and it's worth repeating that I have been asked a lot throughout the last 25 years, like what separated, Marcus Boyles and Bobby Hall from everybody else. Like what, in my opinion, like what
Mm-hmm.
and you've probably heard me say this. I believe that more than anything else, it was the belief factor that you had in yourself and the belief factor that you could transfer to the people in your program. I think you and him both went into every single game you ever coached thinking, we'll win this ball game. Like there may be a way, that we may not be the best team, but we're still going to figure out a way to, find a few things that we do well, shorten the game, have the ball in the fourth quarter. But you honestly believed you were going to win every single game you went into. And then that belief transferred to the players. So it wasn't just a belief, the belief turned into a behavior that they went out and executed on a daily belief. So I guess my question is this: do you can you comprehend what I'm saying as far as do you see that in yourself, being able to transfer that, having the confidence? I think confidence is the word that we are going to win this game. And then where did that come from? Like where in you? did that, confidence, that belief factor, like where did that come from?
Yeah, I think at an early age, I just every time whatever I was playing, and I thought I was gonna win. And growing up with seven other cousins in Raleigh, so there was like eight of us in Raleigh, and we were all within 2 years of each other, and we just played ball. That's just what we did. And I'm not talking about going to the Little League Park. We would play. I wasn't a basketball player, but we'd have basketball games. And I just thought I'm gonna be the best basketball player out here. I'm gonna find a way to win. And I just think that's part of it. Is just I thought. I mean, I don't want to sound cocky, but I just thought I was going to be the best. I was going to win, and then playing for Coach Hall and coaching with Coach Hall, I think that rubbed off also. And I just believe that if when I go into a season thinking that we're not going to have a chance to compete for a state championship, when I go into that, then it's time for me to retire. It's time for me to
Mm,
get out of it. And I know, and I know, John, there's some years, we know, okay, now we're going to have to catch some breaks. This team right here, man, they probably, they need to not be quite as good as we think they're going
sure.
to be, and all that. But I want our kids thinking we're going to win every ball game. Now, that's just, I don't care who we're playing. We're just going to win every ball game. And that's just a belief that you have to instill into your kids. And that doesn't start in August. Man, that starts in January in the off. I don't even know. It never. I don't think it starts. It never stops. It's
Right.
just a continuing thing. I mean, it's just that's just who we are, and I know you're the same way. That's just who we are, and that's how
Yeah.
we're wired. And some people are not wired like that.
No.
I mean, they're just not. But that's the people that are successful in any endeavor. I don't care if we're talking about sports. I don't care what it is. The people that are successful, they just believe they're going to be successful. They're going to
Yeah.
find a way to do something that everybody else is not doing, whatever that is.
And then on top of that, they are absolutely going to outwork everybody else. They just
No
are.
doubt.
Like there's going to be amount of hard work. And that was what I took, from you. As soon as you got to Pearl, there was an increase in output. Like there was an increase and Pearl's a challenging place. I mean, there aren't many people in this world probably that truly understand that Pearl is a tough place to coach. It's a very unique place, and even the 2 years you spent there, we played for a South half, we played for a North half, in those 2 years, which were phenomenal. But let's go back to your first head coaching stint. You end up at Taylorsville High School and you go 67-4, which is what, when you came to Pearl, that was what you came. And I can remember, I don't know how old you were when you came to Pearl, but I just remember my concept was young hot shot. Like this is
Yeah.
and this dude was a guru, right? 67-4. So you take that belief that I'm gonna win at
Mhm.
everything, right? And then, what did you learn through those years at Taylorsville? Because you didn't lose very much, like what did that do for you as you started in your career?
Yeah, I look back at those years at Taylorsville, and I'm thankful that we had great players because I didn't know what I was doing at all. No, I think though, oh, man, I just look back and just I learned every year, and those kids and those coaches. I was very fortunate at Taylorsville. I mean, small school. I had four other coaches with me at that time, and those guys were all older than me. They had been there and just learning to rely on them, to
Yeah.
lean on them, not thinking I know it all, to lean on them. And I was calling Bobby Hall probably almost daily. I mean, just calling him, asking him, "Hey, what about this situation? What about this situation?" Just because it was all new to me, and not being too proud to do that. But I think that is. Yes, I was very fortunate to win a bunch of football games, but I had some great coaches and some great players, and being able to make mistakes and still win, that helps. That helps.
Yeah, for sure. What about if there was and you put it on an index card, like a blueprint, like your blueprint to be successful. All right. So when you leave, Taylorsville and you go to Pearl, you leave Pearl and you go to Wayne County to Petal, all the like what would be a few things that are just non-negotiable? Like these are things that have to happen in our program for us to have a chance to be successful.
I think first it starts with administration.
Mm.
You got to have the right administration backing you. They've got to be all in. And when I say you're not shortcutting academics by any means. Okay, I know when I got hired at Petal, they said it best. We are going to be great in academics, in athletics, and arts. We're going to
Mm,
be great. There's non-negotiables. That's what we're going to be great in. Okay, and so I think it's going to start with having a great administration team, and then it's going to start, and then it's going to also hiring the right people as coaches. Okay, making sure, and when I say the right people, there's great coaches out there that are assistant coaches but maybe they're not, they don't need to work with Marcus Boyles. They're great coaches, but their philosophy, my philosophy, their beliefs, my beliefs are not going to mix. Okay. And I think you got to have the right people. And you know this, John, sometimes you hire someone and within in a few months, this guy is not the right guy. He's, hey, great football coach, great family man, but he doesn't fit in to our system of how we're trying to do things. And I think so. You got to have the right coaching staff. You got to hire the right people. I hate to say, I mean, I don't want to use, but it's kind of like you got to have the right people on the bus. I mean,
yeah,
you got to have the right people on the bus, and then it goes to the players. And I think the players, in high school, they are who they are. We're not at college. We're not getting recruiting. And I know that's maybe changing too in the high school, but
sure.
we're not recruiting those kids. They are who we are. But I think with the players, then it gets into building the relationships. You know, so to me, right administrators, hiring the right coaches, having great relationship with those coaches too. Because I mean, you're fixing to spend a lot of time with those coaches, but with the players, it's about building relationships with those players. Those players they've got to like you and respect you. They've got to know that you have their back. And I mean, and I think I hope my players know I have their back. That I'm there for them. Okay, that I'm gonna stand up for them every time. But at the same time, I'm also go discipline them when they mess up. Now I may stand up for them right here, but then when we get in my office, it's gonna be like, okay, you screwed this up. This is your fault. Okay,
Right.
but you got to build that relationship. And to me, that's one thing that separates the really good coaches from the not so good coaches is the relationship factor with their players and their coaches. You know, I mean, I
Mm,
think it's both. I mean, like I'm a huge Nick Saban fan. And what I see from him, you see the hard coaching he does on or used to do on Saturdays. But man, when you hear these guys talk about him now, it's like, I mean, they love him. Those coaches, those players that play for him love him. But you just see the Saturdays when he's getting on their tables,
yeah,
but he can do that because he built relationships with them.
yeah. One of the things that I think goes, unnoticed so many times is, and you both are an example of this. Like you can win football games running any offense, right? Running any defense, running any special teams. Like the how you do it is much more important than the what you do. And the how starts with the relationships that you have with the players. And if you love those guys know that. It goes back to the old famous quote, nobody cares how much you know till they know how much you care. Like
Mm-hmm.
with you, that is, it's obvious, what I'm saying? Because they did, and when you have a great relationship, they will go out there and play so much harder than if you do not. I want to ask you this because you've probably heard me say this before. I think one of the other things that made you special, or at least made you special in my eyes, was it's about 1999. And I'm probably, just, man, I'm football. I want to be a football coach, and that's it. Like, it ain't, man, like my other parts of life are iffy, blah, blah, blah. And I walk into the house one day. Have I ever told you this? I probably
I don't
haven't.
think so.
And my wife, who we've been married 30 years and is awesome, she said, John, why you can't be more like Marcus? And I'm
Oh
like,
Lord.
I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, Marcus is a really good football coach. but he's also a really good husband. He's also a really good father. He's also, and it just, it was one of those things that I needed to hear, that it wasn't nice and I didn't want to hear it. And I probably didn't take it very well. But the compliment is that what I have watched you, do, and it was a blessing in my life to run across, you when I did, because I don't know what would have happened, in my life. But how do you manage to, be the best you can be, right? When you're at work and expect this and have the relationships and spend the time, but you can also be who you need to be for the people in your life. Because I think a lot of people mess that up. And I think a lot of people that are driven to be great mess that up. But it is, like you do wear both of those hats, and that's one thing that, I respect more about you probably than anything else is the fact that you can do that. Where did that come from, and do you understand how important that is?
Yeah, I think that came from my mom and dad divorcing when I was in the first grade. I really do. I think that it came from that, and then they both got remarried to someone, and they divorced again before I ever started coaching. Okay, and just seeing that and knowing I don't want that.
Mm,
I don't want, and people that have never been through a divorce situation. And I was an only child, but it affects you. Okay, you're getting pulled in two different directions, and it
yeah.
affects you. And I didn't want that. And then the second thing is having a great wife. It because when you're
Mm,
driven like both of us are, okay, there's gonna be times, and I hate this, so this kind of contradicts, I guess, what you're saying. There's gonna be times when your family gets put on the back burner, but the wife has to understand that, okay, and the kids have to understand that. And my wife Myra, just like yours, did a great job of understanding. Like I told you earlier, I was showing up at 6 o'clock to learn with Bobby Hall when I had a newborn, but Myra was great about that. She
yeah.
didn't ask that. The thing Myra always held me accountable for, and I appreciate this, was when I was there, I'm there.
Mm,
I'm present. Okay. I'm present. And used to, there was a lot of times I would get home, eat supper, we'd get Victoria to bed and all that. And then I would stay up watching film. And a lot of times Myra would sit in there with me because
sure.
she wanted to learn football. And so she said, "What are you looking for?" And I would, probably didn't do good enough, but I would try to explain, "Hey, this is what I'm looking for." And I was just watching tape on the opponent, trying to figure something out. And that's the days before we ever started filming our own practices. We
Right.
didn't film our own
Right.
practice. We just, and so just showing that. But I think the biggest thing is the divorce situation early in my life, and then Myra holding me accountable to, hey, when you're here, be here. When you're here, be here. And there's going to be times you're going to miss things. And I can use this as an example. I was at head coach at Wayne County, and I got selected to coach in the Mississippi Alabama All Star game. Well, I'm there in Mobile. Victoria is a ninth grader in the state cheerleading competition. I miss it. They won the state championship. I regret that to this day that I didn't make a sacrifice to get up there and see her. But you know what? She called me on the phone. She was okay. She never, not one time did she ever say, "Daddy, you missed it." She just called me to let me know they had won the state championship. And that is
Mm,
special. And it
yeah.
shows that they understood.
Yeah.
They understood. Now, if I could go back and do it, if I knew what was going to happen, man, I'd left Mobile and drove to Jackson.
Sure.
But I just shows that shows they understood, and I think it shows that, hey, they knew, hey, Daddy's at his job doing what he's got to do, and it goes back to Myra though, and I
Yeah.
think but when you're there, man, be present. And
Mm,
I know that's hard. If you're playing your rival that week, Myra knows if we're playing Oak Grove as our rival, she knows, hey, Mark's gonna kind of be checked out. He might be here, but mentally he's not gonna be here. And I tell I teach Sunday school. I tell my Sunday school class, hey, look, man, sometimes I'll be sitting in service on Sunday, and I said, I hate to tell y'all this. I said, but I'll be sitting in service, and I'm wondering, hey, how we gonna do this against Oak Grove? Oh, no, that's me and God. God has to, talk to me about,
sure.
about that. But and I think every coach is, if you're going to church, I think there's going to be some Sundays you're like, okay, you're replaying the game on Friday night because you didn't play well, or you got a big upcoming game, like y'all played in the state championship this year. Probably that Sunday, man, you might not have been tuned in like God
No doubt.
wanted you to be tuned in.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, look, if you're young, and I don't really care the profession. I don't care what profession you're in, because what
Yes.
I have found in this, in this podcast journey, having 200 guests or what have you,
Mhm.
there's an underlying factor that hard work separates people, and it doesn't
Yes.
matter if you're in the banking business, the
That's
coaching
right.
business. Hard work is a separator, and if you're going to be successful, your spouse better be all in, right? If your
Hmm.
spouse is not all in, you're going to end up divorced, or you're not going
Yep.
to be very successful.
Hmm.
And the second one is, and the lesson that you just told, there's no such thing as balance. Balance don't exist in this world, because if balance is time, it's never going to happen. But if you can walk into your house and be present when it's time to be present, when you're there, be
Yeah.
present, then that's good. Like, that's great.
Yep.
But that's good enough. But there are
Hmm.
too many people that stay checked out too much. Now, I would also like to say this. Like Marcus Boyles is a growth minded guy too. And I can tell you how I know. I'm fixing to give you a story that's the truth. Now, your superintendent told a story on me that I don't really believe, to be honest with you, about me cutting the sprinklers on the band director. I don't really believe that, but whatever. I have grown. I am different. But Marcus Boyles is different too, because when you come to Pearl in 1998, we're out there at one of the first practices, and there's going to be a touchdown club meeting after practice. And right at the end of practice, something don't, go just right. And Marcus unleashes a rant. Well,
Hmm.
as I'm walking off the field that day, I hear this lady. I can still picture her. Her son's name was Jared, I think. I'm walking through the gate. She ain't talking to me. She's talking to her husband. She says, "Well, I guess he ain't gonna be teaching Sunday school class." Because it
Yeah.
was a rant. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah.
Now,
Yep.
there was, as I've come to know, there was some Bobby Hall in that rant. Okay, like that was a Bobby Hall rant. And
Hmm.
that was your high school coach, and you had,
Hmm.
but fast forward to now we're teaching Sunday school. I
Yeah.
know that there's been some growth happen.
There has, and I will say this: there's still moments that
Sure,
I fail.
sure. Hey, I'm gonna tell you what. Anybody that ever has an issue with that, all they got to do is go jump into the Bible and read the story of David, right? Like, David was a man after God's own heart. And
Yep.
David stood up on the roof of that building and saw Bathsheba and said, "I'll take that, and
Yep.
I'll kill her husband, and I'll," you know what I'm saying? But,
Yep.
now we all fall short. So,
Hey,
I
no
do
doubt.
understand
And
that.
you're right. I think it's any profession. You you got to work hard to be successful, and you got to build relationships, because every profession you're dealing with people, and if
Mm,
you got to build relationships with those people, with your team. And I'm when I say team, I don't mean athletics, but with your team of people, you got to build relationships. And if you can't do that, you can work hard, but if you don't have the relationship factor, you're not going to be successful. You
yeah,
can, have the relationships, but if you're not working hard, you're not going to be as successful as you ought to be.
no doubt about it. All right, another thing I respect greatly, because I think people sometimes won't do this. Like, you had went 67-4 at Taylorsville, and at Pearl had went 20-7, which was really good at Pearl, and played for a North and a South half back to back years. But something wasn't right. You knew something wasn't right, and you was willing to take a step back and go be the offensive coordinator for Bobby Hall at Wayne County, not knowing, you had no clue, at that time, that he was going to go to Northeast Community
No.
College in less than 9 months or what have you. Tell me about that, like that, being humble enough, because a lot of people wouldn't do that. Like, a lot of people would, they'd have sat there and wrote that out, been successful or unsuccessful or whatever, because I'm a head coach, right? A lot of people won't go back in title, because of principle, and you did, like, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I just, there was just something. Pearl was not a good fit for Marcus Boyles. I'm
Sure,
just going to say that, okay? Pearl's a great place. Man, I mean, you can win at Pearl, but for me, it was not the right fit,
sure.
okay? And I will tell you this. A lot of people don't know this story. When I went to interview the second time at Pearl, and they had offered me the job, we went, I had, okay, I need this much more money to leave Taylorsville. And they met that. And that taught me an important lesson. God taught me an important lesson. I gave you financially what you wanted, but that wasn't the right job for you. Okay,
Wow.
now I grew as a coach at Pearl. Man, me and you are great friends. So had great relationships there. And my family, Myra and the girls loved it. You know, we've been living in Taylorsville, which is middle of nowhere. We moved to Pearl, man. There's something for them to do everywhere, you know.
Right.
I mean, they can ride around the corner and get something to eat. All we had at Taylorsville was awards. That was it, you know. So they loved it. But for me, it was, and again, I think that goes back to the spouse, is she was willing to move. She never questioned it. I've told her this when I came home after we got beat in that playoff game. And I came home and said, "Look, I won't be back at Pearl. We're moving." She never questioned it. She just let me know. She said, "Just let me know where we're going," because she knew I wasn't going to move her somewhere bad. Okay, and
Sure.
we were small town. Now, for Stephanie, moving from Pearl to Waynesboro was a cultural shock.
It
Okay,
was a culture shock.
you know, but she knew, and just being willing to step back. And I mean, I think not everybody has to do that, but sometimes that's what you have to do, is be willing to step back to grow. And I think that 1 year going back under, because you got to realize I'd only been an assistant for 4 years, going back that 1 year after being a head coach, and then go back and just
Yeah.
relax, catch my breath, and like, okay, all right, and figuring out, because Bobby Hall had grown also,
Yeah.
you know, because I coached with him at Louisville, and then he went on to Madison, was very successful, and then came in. So he had grown. He had changed some weight, some things he was doing at Louisville versus 10 years later, whatever it was, I coached with
Yeah.
him. He had changed. He
Yeah.
had. He had changed, and I think that helped also. And seeing how he put that staff together, because I had never seen that part of it. And I had not, because when I went to Louisville, I was the new guy. We didn't add anybody. And then obviously at Tozeville, it was who it was. When I went to Pearl, it was who it was. And now going to Wayne County with him, and he got to pick and choose. I saw how he put together a staff, and I think that was big because I was able to do that other places. But just like, as you know, after the 2020 season in 21, I retired and went to work with an athletic company for 2 years. And those 2 years got me back into coaching because
Mm.
I said, this is who I am. And
Mm.
people say, well, you can't be identified by your job. That's bull. Okay. I'm identified as a coach. That's who I am. Okay. Now I love God, and that's who my identity is and all that. Okay. But I know also I'm a coach. That's who I am. I am a coach. Okay. I'm a leader of men, leader of young people.
Well, I think the lesson is, one of the lessons is this: you can't be afraid to continue to grow. And sometimes continuing to grow is, stepping back in title, because a title don't make anybody
Mm-mm.
a leader or this or that. And then, like you said, when you went back, like Bobby had changed, right? Like, I mean, it was a
Mm-hmm.
totally different experience, even though, you was the OC or what have you. And then you take over and y'all go 127 and 21 over the next
Mm-hmm.
however many years, had this phenomenal run, you know what I'm saying? So, I think being willing to step back 100% propelled you, even further down the road. Now, I do want to get into, like you get to pedal and, super successful at pedal. Pedal's a different place than Waynesboro, obviously. But you get out of it and you spend 2 years, selling sporting goods. And I know because we continued to talk through that 2 years that, that was not maybe the highlight of your career. So you're able to get back into it, like what was, like what was other than I'm a coach and that's what I'm supposed to be doing. What else did you figure out about yourself during that time down? And are you at all different now than you were 3 years ago when you were coaching at Pedal?
Probably somewhat, yes. I think I am, because what I missed when I was out of it was the relationships with the coaches and players. You don't know how important that is, how special that is. And I think it's a unique fraternity that we have in that, because we spend so much time with each other that, man, I miss that. And I don't know that other companies have that, other
Mm.
jobs have that. Like you mentioned, the banker, man, yeah, you're with those people, but you're with those people during the 8 to 5 hours. John, we're with each other on Sundays when we're working. We're each other on bus drives, on the JV, the ninth grade bus rides, and we're with each other. We're hanging out with each other a lot. And I don't think other jobs have that. So, but I miss the relationships. And I tell people all the time, my favorite part of the day right now is we get our kids at 2:09. That's when we get our football players. My favorite part of the day is 2:09 when my players come down to the field house. That's my favorite part of the day. I love seeing those kids, and I'm down there every day. And I've had our coach. We have, you don't know our field house, but we have the upstairs. The offices are upstairs. But I make sure, hey, coaches that are over here, man, we want to be downstairs meeting these kids because these kids just came from something that might not have been good. We need to be down there meeting them, greeting them, and you can find out, hey, what kind of day that kid have? He comes in, and normally he's happy and smiling. He comes in, his head's down. Hey, what's wrong with this kid? And I think that goes back to relationships. Hey, let's pull him aside. You don't ever know. That gum girlfriend may have just broke up with him, or he may have just failed his English test, and you don't know. Like I tell you a quick example. I got a really, really good running back who's an A and B student. He came in one day and he's hanging out in the dressing room. We got to be, we got just like you. You're supposed to be in the weight room at this time. He's still, and I'm like, this is not him. He's never late. He's the first one. And I go over there, man. He's got tears in his eyes. He had just failed a math test,
Mm.
and it crushed him because he is an A and B student, 20 something on the ACT, that kind of stuff. And I pull him to the side. I said, hey, look, you take 5 minutes. It's going to be okay. My daughter helps in math. She helps tutor math. I said, we'll get you with my daughter. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. You take 5 minutes. You don't come in this weight room to your eyes are dry, man, and you come in there. He took 5 minutes. He came in there. 10 years ago, I might would have told, hey, boy, suck it up and let's go. You got to forget this.
Right.
So I think that's what I miss. I went around the world, but that's what I miss is those relationships with those kids. And you got to know what's wrong with them.
No doubt about it. Like that's a great example of being present. I have a good friend, Rick Jones, that says, it's almost like being a Walmart greeter when they come in, right? Like you got to be able to greet them because they're walking in free of charge. I mean, I know you've been known to pay a few players in your time, but most of us
Yeah,
do
yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm joking. But he would always say, like, if you went into Walmart and the greeter was ugly and nasty or not present or like you wouldn't continue to
Mm-hmm.
go to Walmart. So these
No.
kids walk into our program slap free. They ain't making nothing. How are we going to greet them? How are we going to love them? How are we going to care about them? How are we going to look after them? So I think that's a great
Yeah.
example. What?
What the Chick-fil-A model.
Mm,
When you walk in Chick-fil-A, they're go greet you because that's how they're trained.
no doubt.
And I mean, what makes, and I don't want to get off on too much, but what makes the Chick-fil-A model better than another fast food model is because when you walk in, they're go greet you. I
Yeah,
don't know if their chicken. I mean, I know the Chick-fil-A people would disagree. I don't know their chicken's any better than anybody else's chicken. Okay,
sure,
it's chicken, but
sure.
it's how they greet you. It's their service. That's what makes the difference.
There ain't no doubt.
You know.
Every time I leave, every time I pull through the drive-through, it's been my pleasure. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you what, you go through the drive-through at McDonald's, you might get hit with a hamburger upside the head. You ain't getting hit with no my pleasure. I can assure you
No,
that.
you brought it up. I did, but you're right.
All right, what do most young coaches today? What do most young coaches get wrong?
They think they know more than they know.
Mm,
They think they know more than they know, and man, they're not willing to ask questions. They're not willing. I hate to say this because I'm going to contradict myself. They're not willing to ask questions, and they're not willing to just sit over there and shut up and
right.
listen and learn. Okay, they want to grow as a coach and all that, but what clinics are you going to? Who are you listening to? Because there's so many podcasts out there now. There's so much on YouTube. Like, for us, man, we want to get back to being an RPO team. Okay, I talked to you about
Sure.
that, and we visited a couple people, but I'm getting on YouTube and listening to people. Hey, how are you doing? How are you teaching? Because there's so much teaching out there now that wasn't, when me and you first started, that wasn't out there. But I think that's what they're missing is, I guess, really, John. I guess really the growth mindset. They're not willing to grow.
Right.
You know?
Understood completely. And that's a common, and I think it's just the generation thing. Like, and some of it is they have so much more. they honestly are smarter, right? Like they have more information at their fingertips than we ever had.
Right.
So they are wired a little bit differently, but learning and growing and paying your dues is part of the process, right? Like it is, and I don't think it ever ends. Like I don't think you get to be 54 years old and all of a sudden, you can afford to stop learning and growing, right? Because if you
No.
do, it's going to pass you by. You know what I mean?
Well, if someone would have told me in 97, 98, 99, 2000, when you and I were coaching together, if someone would have told me, hey, John Perry in 2020, or go, I don't know when you started this, but go start doing podcasts. I said, you are a liar. John Perry's not doing podcasts. And you were a really good football coach, but you know,
Yes,
probably didn't even have podcasts back then, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, but just for you, that's your growth. That's where you have
sure,
felt led to go, and that's not for everyone. Me
sure.
doing a podcast, like you, I'm on a podcast, but actually doing a podcast, that's not who I am. Okay,
Sure.
but you got to find what are you and continue to grow, because you're never go know it all. And again, you've said this in any profession, you're never
Sure.
go get to the point I know everything,
Mm.
and that's just not happening.
It ain't gonna happen. That's the truth, for sure. Well, I want to ask you this, and you've been generous with your time, so we're close. When you started out, what would you have used as a definition for success? What did it mean to be successful, when you were 25? And what does it mean today to be successful? Has it changed at all?
Oh, yes. When I first started out, it was about winning district championships. It was about winning state championships, and I think God blessed me, because my first year as a head coach, we played for a state championship and got beat. And I'm
Mm,
all upset, and Myra doesn't understand. And I said, Myra, I know coaches that are really, really successful that never got to play for a state championship. God let me play for one, and I get beat in. And
right.
then I won the next. I'm sorry, we won the next two. And so I think early on it was about winning, 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 and now I still love to win. So I'm not even go. I'm not going to say that. Okay, I still love to win. I still want to win championships. But I think now, to me, and I tell coaches all the time, to me, to be successful is winning the games you're supposed to win, no doubt about it. But seeing that growth. Are you a better team for us, or we're a better team in November than we were in August, because we
Yeah,
grew. We
yeah,
grew. And I will say this past year, we were not. We were a better team in the middle of the year than we were in November. And that bothers me. That
sure,
that because we didn't have that growth. And so to me, we had you look on paper, we had a successful season, but when you live it and all, we were not successful. We didn't win the games we should have won. We didn't finish how we should have finished. And so, because you're not going to win a state championship every year, there's so many
sure.
coaches, John, man, you're a very successful coach, but and the last 2 years you've gotten. I don't want to bring up bad, but you've gotten beaten. But you've
For
gotten
sure,
beaten in a state championship. But was it successful seasons? I'm gonna say yes. It probably was successful season.
sure,
Now I don't know if you should have won the state championship or
for
not.
sure.
I'm not. I know 2 years ago, I think you definitely got beat by a better football team.
No
Okay,
doubt,
okay.
no
So
doubt.
and so don't measure it by the bottom dollar, so to speak,
Yeah,
man. Did your kids grow? Did you win the games you should have won? Did you maybe win a game or two you shouldn't have won? And then but did your kids grow as a football player and as a human being? I think that's
okay,
huge.
so that process, like how do you evaluate? How do you get to the part where, man, we didn't continue to get better? We didn't do this. How do you evaluate that? And then what does it look like to try to fix that for what's coming up in the future?
Yeah, I evaluated it because we didn't compete at the end of the year like we were competing early on. We did not compete. We didn't have that fire. We didn't have that energy. We didn't have that drive, and that's my fault. I don't blame that on the kids. And I
Sure.
told I told our coach that falls back on me. I didn't have it, and then I said y'all didn't have it, and our kids didn't have it. Okay, it's not a bottom up. It's a top down,
No
and I
doubt.
didn't have it. And so how is, man, we're bringing energy every day. We've changed a little bit how we're doing some things. Okay, in how we're doing things in the off season. It's a lot more competitive now. In the weight room, it's hard, But when we
Sure.
go outside, there's a lot of competing that's going on outside. We've got them divided up into teams, and we're competing. Hey, we're competing every day. We go outside to do things, and then when we start spring ball, like a lot, I know I don't think you have spring ball in Missouri, but when we start spring ball here in about 3 weeks, uh, we're fixing to figure out who's going to compete and who's going to lay down when it gets tough. You know,
Mm,
and that's what we got to have. And
yeah,
so
for
you
sure.
got to, it's that growth mindset. You got to change. There were some ways we were doing things in practice. We're not going to do it that way. And I think this is true too. Just because it worked last year, and you may even have won a state championship last year doing it. This is a new team. You got to figure out what motivates this team, what makes this team want to be successful. And sometimes you have to change the way you practice. And you know this, sometimes in high school, you got to change what you're doing on offense and defense because you don't have the personnel. You
That's
know,
right.
I love being one back, 3 and 4, either 11 personnel or 10 personnel. But you know what? If we don't have the receivers or we don't have the quarterback that can play that, well, we might ought to get back in some two tight end and learn how to figure out how to run the football, shorten the game, and be physical on
Yeah, no doubt
defense.
about it.
You know.
No doubt about it. One of my good friends, I think you probably know him, Chris Yeager at Mountain
Yeah.
Brook.
Oh yeah.
I asked him one time, how do you stay somewhere 22 years as the head coach? I think it's 22 and not become complacent, not become, and his answer was phenomenal, and which you made me think of it was he said, I don't look at it that way. He said, I look at it as I'm different every single year. Like I evaluate, I look at, and I try to grow. So he said, I feel like I show up every single year to a new team, because I'm a new
Mm-hmm.
person that gets to go be with this team. And, you've had that luxury, even though, you had a couple of years off, but you come back, you do come at it from a little different point of view. And if you continue to evaluate and show up better every year, you shouldn't really be complacent, right? Like it
No,
should be a new
completely.
job every single year because with these kids we coach, man, I can promise you every day they wake up, it's a new day. You know what I mean?
That's right. And in any sport right now, because of college, it's a new team. I
Yeah,
mean,
no
and, and,
doubt.
and even for us, when those 20 plus seniors leave, man, we got a new team coming in. You know,
Yeah.
we got a new team coming in, and there's so many personalities in that locker room. Like you just said, man, it's a new. So every year, that is a great point. I never thought about it like that, but Chris Yeager made that's a great point. You are a new person, and it's a new job every year. It might be at Pedal High School again, but it's a new job because it's
Yes,
different people in the building.
no doubt. And one thing I learned in Missouri that, and I don't know why it was the transition. I don't know, it's just the way the place is built or something, but there were times in my life where at Pearl, if a kid quit on me or a kid didn't play football that I thought should play football and he just played this or just played that, like I would hold that against him and I'd hold a grudge, and it was not necessarily good. But what I have learned to do is this, man, January 1 is a reset button for me. And I don't give two rats booties about what happened last year. Like I'm gonna re-recruit them hallways. I'm gonna try to get the best program we can have for one single year because the last time
Yep.
I checked, we all signed a 1 year contract anyway, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to win this year, right? Regardless of if you quit, if you didn't play, like I'm gonna re-recruit them jokers just like, because what are they doing in college football right now? I mean, it is truly 1 year to the next, and
Mm-hmm.
I do think it has helped me reset us in that manner. Well,
Yeah.
hey, I want to say this. I want to, tell you how much I appreciate you. You don't really know how big of an influence you've been on me. Like there are things that, we suck at appreciating other folks. We suck at telling people
Oh yeah.
thank you and all that as a human. But I'm very appreciative. Like you have given me the opportunity to do what I love to do and to try to emulate somebody that has done it at a high level and be a good human. You know what I'm saying? Truly be a good human. And you have made a difference in a lot of people's lives. And I hope, that you know that because you got a lot of people that have coached with you, under you, that have, been extremely successful. And, like you have been a blessing to a lot of people, truly a blessing to me. I really appreciate you, more than you'll ever know. I appreciate your wife. I mean, what a great example she was, for us because, we didn't come from a coaching family. We didn't come from somebody that, our dad wasn't a coach and this and that. So like we had to figure it out. You know what I mean? And y'all were a big part of that. And I really do appreciate you, and I appreciate you letting me catch you and share you
Man, I
with the
appreciate
universe.
it. Hey, and I do appreciate you, and that's what it's about, building relationships.
No doubt about it. Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate all of you that listen. Until next time, adios, amigos. Hey, man.